Hey there, I am Barb Higgins, and this is 1,000 Tiny Steps. In this podcast, I share my stories of love, loss, triumph, and tragedy as I continue to retrace my steps and ponder what led to the death of my daughter Molly. By doing so, I hope to not only help myself, but to bring purpose and possibility to those who listen. If you are ready to laugh, cry, shake your head in disbelief, then tie, buckle, lace up, or slip on your shoes and join me as we begin our 1,000 Tiny Steps. Hey everybody, Barb Higgins here, welcoming you to episode, 202 maybe, of 1,000 Tiny Steps. We're in the 200s now. So I've had a couple of Poor Me episodes. I've gone through Horrible May and June. I've had some amazing guests in between the Poor Me episodes. And now I'm back talking to Eleanor, my sister. So for those of you who don't know Eleanor, you need to stop listening right now and go back and listen to Eleanor episode. It was in April sometime. Go back and listen because then you can get to know Eleanor. Quick summary for new listeners. She's my younger sister by 30 plus years. We share a dad. We know each other's moms, but we do not have the same mom. And we have siblings who are a generation above me. So we span a lifetime in terms of our paternal DNA. So last time we spoke, we talked a lot about what it was like to be raised by an older parent, how ageism and age assumptions can affect people's perceptions. Now, today, we're going to talk about how our family is a bit decorated with surprise relatives and what it's like to find out that you have an aunt or a half sibling or a cousin or a nephew or a niece that you didn't know you had. And Eleanor and I are going through that. So as I record this, we have not yet met our new niece. We're aunties. My daughter Gracie is Eleanor's niece. This is how my family is. So you have 5 nephews.
Yeah, I have Jonathan, Sam, Tom with PJ, and then Martha's 2 sons. That makes 5. And then Jack is 6, Jonah 7.
Gracie 8.
Well, Gracie's the one and only niece I have up until most recently.
Yes.
So now I have these 2 individuals, which is really, really exciting and just interesting. I love using the word interesting for our stories and our lives because a lot of people come in and out. A lot of people that I've always known that Barbara got introduced to midlife, and it's just exciting to see how we have more people that we didn't even know existed are part of our family now.
Yes. So for our older siblings, Martha, PJ, and Jeffrey, finding out about all these younger siblings has been a bit of a way of life for them. All these younger siblings being Jonathan and myself, so not a lot. But our dad, Tom, often alluded to the fact that he often said to us, you've met them all. But that didn't necessarily remove the possibility that we met someone that we didn't know as a sibling. I have spoken with our older siblings about that many times. Like, will we ever find out that there are more half siblings? Are there more people we're going to meet? Yeah, Martha, Jeffrey, and PJ grew up in a nuclear family. And then my brother Jonathan and I came along for them really in their 50s and maybe even 60s, like much further along in life than me finding out. I'm hooked on these podcasts now. One's called MPE, and then there's another one that's about children who are products of sperm donation. So early on in sperm donation, there was no regulation whatsoever. Men could go once a week and donate sperm and make tons of money on it. And then they would use it on hundreds and hundreds of children. It's much more regulated now to prevent, 35 kids in one town of being half siblings, which is actually not an uncommon reality from children born of sperm donors like in the 80s. So I became fixated on these podcasts because I found out about my biological reality as a teenager. It's not something I was born knowing. And I know that when you find that out, 9 million questions show up. Am I who I thought I was? What does it mean to be a father? What's the difference between a father and a dad? Okay, I have these siblings, but we didn't grow up together and we don't do family things together. So what does that mean? For me, it's just opened it up. It's like made a broader definition. I have elements of Tom, our father, that are father-like, and then some that are dad-like. A lot of our hikes and excursions made me feel like he was my dad. But I have those memories with my Mr. Higgins dad as well. So it goes around and around and around. But in the mid-March or April, a few months ago, when I received an email from a woman asking, how are we related? Because you're on my ancestry and I don't quite know how. from the tenor of the email, she assumed I was related to her relatives. Like, how are you related to me? And I said, well, I asked in the email, is it your mom's side or your dad's side? And she said, I don't really know. I don't have a lot of information on any of my dad's relatives, which is not surprising now that we know her biological reality isn't her who she thought. So I sort of left it. I said, well, as you get more information, and I'll do some digging as well. I never went on and looked. I think if I had gone on and looked, it would have told me which relative we were connected by. Could have been quicker. So I got a phone call from PJ, our older brother, asking me, had I heard from somebody on Ancestry, because he had. And the first assumption for us was another sibling. So I asked my mom, does this name sound familiar to you? I went on Facebook and, checking it all out. And my mother, no, she didn't have any connection to the name and all this. It was a lot of back and forths between PJ and myself, and an initial assumption that, oh, no, it's not through dad, it's through my mom, PJ's mom. I'm not related to PJ's mother. So if this person was related to PJ's mother, but she's also on mine, then obviously she's also related to PJ's father. So it was this massive, it was just like, it took like a whole weekend to sort of put all these things together. Were you involved in all that?
I remember being alerted of this news, but I wasn't super invested until we figured out the relation.
Yeah. And we can talk about that too, because that makes it really special. But something that took me back a little bit was PJ's initial question to me was, did you know this? Like, are you keeping sibling secrets from us? And I'm thinking to myself, like, why on earth would I keep a secret? Like, it took me back a bit, and I can just accept that that's where his mind went right away, because I don't blame him, because he thought life was a certain way. And surprise, surprise, here's a sister. Surprise, surprise, here's a brother. But no, I had no idea. And we really just assumed that it was a sibling. And it wasn't until, I mean, we went back and forth a couple of times before there was this eye-opening realization that, okay, the only way this person can be connected to us is through Jeffrey, who is our other brother. And Jeffrey passed away before all of this happened. So now here we are, putting pieces together and putting geography together. And sure enough, Jeffrey was in the area of the country where this woman lives at about the time she would have been conceived and born. And round and round and round she goes, we go. And then, of course, on her side, and someday we'll let her tell the story from her end of it, but she was also going round and round and round, like, wait, what am I finding out? What's going on here? So once you figured out the whole reality, what was all this like for you?
I want to say it was exciting, but also extremely intimidating. Selfishly enough, I thought my news of how I entered the world was kind of the end of the spontaneous
Ritzman
introductions.
legacy. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I was not expecting something like this. If anything, I had assumed it was a cousin of one of us, or maybe dad in some way, shape, or form, because it was news that immediately took me by surprise, and I was almost like not ready to
Hear it.
invest myself in it and hear
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
listen. So that was my first initial piece. And then I remembered what family I was born into and put my ego aside because we're full of surprises. And my sister, has a kid at 57. So what other news is going to be coming up from this?
That's right. Yeah, I guess I am carrying on the family ridiculousness, aren't I?
Not ridiculousness per se, but it just keeps things exciting. And I
Yeah.
suppose I wasn't really ready for anything exciting to be introduced into our family again. I know that when I'm on Ancestry, I come across some people who I haven't met that show some type of DNA correlation to me, and usually I just push it off to the side. But this was different, and so it was really cool to see how it was unraveling kind of in front of our eyes as we were developing new stories and assumptions and hypotheticals.
Yeah. What was exciting for me, because I never really spoke with Martha about it. Most of my communication was with PJ. When the two of us went back and forth and finally narrowed down that this person had to be a child of one of the three, obviously Martha would remember having a third child, and PJ may have had to think through, like, okay. But once we looked at geography and then all of the cousins from their mother's side of the family, that live, some of them live nearby, are geographically close to our new niece. It was this sort of like, oh my gosh, because when we figured out that the connection was Jeffrey, as someone that's lost a child, like things become really important. And I'm just trying to look around because I have things of Molly's all over the place. Things, it can be a little, it can be a picture, it can be a little plastic doodad, it can be a bracelet. And I cling to them because it's this piece of her. And it's not that the bracelet has value, it's that the connection to Molly has value. And so I know for me, and probably a gazillion times stronger, maybe even for you, but definitely from PJ and Martha, is the connection to Jeffrey. Like Jeffrey's gone, and that was a really sad, his life was heroic in some ways, unbelievably sad in some ways, but he became and lived his life as an amazing human being that spent years helping people. He has a legacy. And so that was, for me, it was this sort of emotional, like, oh my God, we have a piece of him. Of course, that puts a lot of pressure on our new niece here because maybe she doesn't want to be the legacy. Although, given interaction so far, I think she's jumping in and really embracing it. Because you and I had lunch with Jeffrey when you came up to visit, and you were very, very protective of him, and tender about him. So, what was that piece of it like? Or is that a big piece of it for you?
I think so. I think that's what I'm navigating the most right now is not only protecting the memory I have of Jeffrey and like my perception of who he was, but also like processing the new news, knowing who Jeffrey was to me, knowing that he navigated the world a little bit differently than most people. And so I found ways in making sure that I looked up to him while also nurturing him in the ways that he needed that I would be able to provide, and knowing that he has someone walking this earth as offspring who didn't get to meet him, but still can embody so many familiarities that might
Yeah.
trigger me in a good ways and ways I'm not ready to feel yet can be intimidating. I'm excited, but I'd be lying if I, you know, didn't say all the other pieces
Yeah.
of how I'm processing all of this
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
news.
Yeah, it's got to be hard. When I listen to these NPE podcasts, oftentimes the child goes to the mother to say, "What the heck? You know, dad's not my dad." And now comes the responsibility of the mother, who may or may not even know that this reality happened. And then you ponder this, you go, not knowing the details of that relationship. So my big fear was that it was a an unhappy memory for our new relative's mom. Like it could have been triggered a traumatic event. Not that Jeffrey would have done anything bad, but not all hookups are good. Or maybe she wouldn't even remember the hookup. It was the late 60s, early 70s, and hippies and parties and drugs and all that. It was just such a wild time. I remember worrying for her that she would approach this situation and share this, and it would be an unhealthy or a bad thing. And this is a huge thread or theme in this reality. All the hundreds of thousands of us that aren't who we thought we were biologically, to get back to the nitty gritty of, okay, the night you made me, or the day you made me, or the moment you made me, or did you know you made me? Like all of those realities. That was on my mind a lot because even though my mother is sort of the one that told me, my mom and Tom told me together. And they told me that they thought it would ease my mind. Did we talk about this before? I had been sexually abused by Mr. Higgins, and so I finally told. I told, and my mother, in her frantic desperation of finding this out, went with Tom to Happy Valley because she needed to get away. Like, sent Jonathan and Johanna to my grandmother's, and she was a mess. And of course, you would be. You find this horrible thing out. It was probably the worst thing they could have done at that time because I was 13 years old, far too young to know this. And then I was told not to tell anybody. My dad says don't tell because nobody will believe you. Then when I do tell, my mom says don't tell anyone because it will make you look bad. Oh, and by the way, he's not really your dad, so it's not so bad what happened. That's how it felt to me. And I think they thought it would make me feel better. I don't know how. It just made me feel like, oh, so I shouldn't be upset about this because he's not related to me, but he doesn't know he's not related to me. And I'm still a little girl and he's a grown man. Like for me, the whole finding out the DNA piece just added, you know what I mean? Like, ugh, it was awful.
And you're
Having said that,
13?
yeah, I was 13. Yeah. My mother's the one that told me. I was sitting on her bedside at night. I couldn't sleep. No, no big surprise. For the weeks and weeks and months after that happened, I'd wake up in the night and I couldn't sleep. And I'd go wake her up and just want to talk. Because I had heard rumors that Jonathan and Johanna were Toms, like that. Those were just rumors around the town. Johanna is a Higgins, so when she started to tell me, I said, "Oh, Jonathan or Johanna," and she's shaking her head and shaking her head, and I'm like, "Me?" I didn't know what to do. Like it's the middle of the night, and I'm already upset, and I didn't quite know like what to do with it. Now I think about this. When I was 13, my mother was 34. That's so young. You know what I mean? She had four kids. She was in an abusive marriage, an affair that was no healthier, and then all this happening. It's a lot, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
amazing
I'm
I'm not
trying
like
to.
mental in my head. I know, I know. Big breaths, Eleanor, big breaths. Look at me, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Woo! So I know for me, I had to look at my mother and be like, how does one make this decision? And then how do you live with it? And ultimately in my life, I felt like it was not fair to me that if you were going to tell me, it needed to be public. Because why am I burdened with the secret? And the other uncomfortable piece of my story in terms of my NPE experience is I ended up telling Jonathan because there was all this family dynamic going on. And I'm like, I can't keep this secret anymore. So, Jonathan, here's what happened to me as a child, and here's who my real father is, and he's yours too. And Jonathan was devastated by this because he was protective of Norm, but he also couldn't wrap his head around all that had happened. So then I got yelled at. My mom was really upset with me that I shared this. And then finally, I'm like, well, you have to tell dad. It's not my secret to keep, and I know it, and you have to tell daddy. And so she's like, well, you have to come with me. And then we're in there talking to him in a room, and she's like, I can't do it. You tell him. And so I had to tell him, which I did, right? Craziness. So, as much as this is all okay now, like I didn't have any control over my conception, but I own so much of it. And I think sometimes that's the burden and how I feel in our family. Like I'm just the reminder of the dirty little secret, which no one has ever made me feel that way. None of our siblings have ever made me feel that way at all. They see the bigger picture from their own childhoods and stuff. But in finding out we have this new relative that so far has just been a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I think it's because we're all adults. No one's finding out at age 12 and knowing full well that there's going to be a lot of wonderful aspects of this new relationship and new family dynamic, but logically, there'll also be some tough ones as well. I can't speak for our niece because I don't know. I can't wait to meet her.
I'm definitely very excited about getting to see her in person, learn about her life and what she's been doing. Because knowing that there's such a huge backstory behind her upbringing and knowing what we know now and what we could share tomorrow and how we meet, like I imagine this news is nothing but exciting for her and who she chooses to share it with.
Yes.
So I think I can be possibly protecting some feelings of others that don't exist
Yeah,
when it
yeah.
comes to before I meet her. And so I'm excited to see what it's like post meeting her.
And I know that her family has been super supportive. They've bought right in. I'm Facebook friends with some of her family now. And so that's just exciting. And I hope it's okay if I reach out. I'm like, of course, we're not a boring family to meet either. So she must be like, oh my God, who are
We
these people?
definitely have stuff to talk about, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I think I'm most curious too about just what it was like growing up. Even though by the time anyone hears this, the visit will have already taken place. What should we do? Should we go to a restaurant? Should we walk on the beach? Should we drive around?
Good question. I personally love to sit at a table and just take it all in for a second
Yeah,
before
yeah,
possibly consuming sustenance or not. But I just want to sounds maybe strange, I don't know, but I just want to be able to look at her while I'm engaging with her.
yeah,
So whether that is a walk or if we're like walking side by side, I just want to just take it all in because this is a very important meeting for both of us and
yeah,
her especially, I feel. So I just want to make sure that she feels like we're all there.
yeah.
At the same time, I need to remind myself to be there and not disassociate.
Oh, the queen of disassociation right here. When I first came to know Martha and PJ, and even Jeffrey to a certain extent, so many similarities. It was just like my little neck hairs would go up. So I'm hoping that some of those evidence themselves. I mean, they may or may not. I don't know.
The more we learn about each other and unpack those things, I feel like it'll be exciting to find those similarities. But then also the ones that we'll see just point blank in our face. I feel like you and I will like look at each other like, oh,
Yeah,
that's a Ritzman thing. And
yeah.
she'll have no idea what we're talking about until we let her know.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think you'll bring to her as her aunt? When I think about it, what I bring is understanding her mother in that process because I have that a similar mother experience in relation to my biological dad as she does. All of those dynamics aren't something that you ever dealt with because your mom and Tom were married. So So I know for me, like that's a connection we have. Sort of like, huh, no one knew I was part of the family, and I am, and how might that be? Because I would imagine she might be a bit intimidated by those things.
I think for me, I'm able to like fill her in on my upbringing, but I think what's a little bit more essential is what I can remember about Jeff that I can share with her. Funny
Yeah,
enough, I have a really hard time remembering Dad's voice, but Jeff's voice I can hear if I just think about him. It's right there, and it's between all the phone calls he and Dad shared where he got to talk to me. It was the Christmas visits that he made time for. Like I just for whatever reason, I feel like I can relay my perspective of Jeff for her, which is definitely through the rosiest of tinted glasses because he
right.
gave me nothing but compassion and joy. And it was just an amazing sibling experience that not many people get to experience due to age or
Yeah.
just the embodiment of what our family is. I'm really excited to share with her what I remember of him. That's really important for me.
Well, it's an incredible connection. When we went and had lunch with him, we had a really wonderful time. Yeah, he was fun. So I have little girl memories of Jeffrey when he was younger and thinner, all post injury. So for those of you listening, our brother Jeffrey had a traumatic brain injury. He was asleep in the backseat of a car. His friends were partying. He should have stayed home in bed, but he didn't. He went out because he thought he would be with his friends and didn't feel good, so he fell asleep in the back. They got in a car accident, and he was ejected from the car and had a traumatic brain injury that affected his life forever. He was never even close to okay again, gave him health issues, gave him behavioral changes based on where the brain injuries were. For a long time, he had alcohol and drug addictions, and he was able to overcome those. He was very, very devoted to 12-step recovery programs and was an ear for everybody. Having walked both sides of the addiction issue myself, sometimes there are a lot of people who think AA is like, oh, you're just constantly calling yourself an addict. And AA is like the ultimate service organization. You dedicate your life to being a success story for the new drunk, the new people that are coming and need to know that they can do this. And Jeffrey, he had dinners and he also stayed very involved with veterans. You had a relationship with Jeffrey, though, that was in many ways far deeper than mine. One of Jeffrey's issues with he had no filter. So whatever he was thinking came right out of his mouth. And there were a couple of visits that I had with Tom that were very uncomfortable and not even remotely okay or appropriate. And Jeffrey was there a couple of those times. And he was livid. Like he just got angry and didn't know how to fix it. And he would just sort of talk his thoughts. We had to bring your dad to the airport once, your dad, our dad, the dad, and we dropped him off. And on the way back, Jeffrey was just like, I want you to know that I love you no matter what. But he was just in a place of anger. And I couldn't really follow what he was saying. And I'm like, please don't be mad at me. I don't always know what to say or do. And he was very clear that it wasn't my job to know that. In the dynamic of our reality, Tom was not the victim. I was the victim. Although I don't feel like a victim, but that's how Jeffrey was just so honest.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember when like if there was a time where like I would get scolded or like Tom would find a way to redirect me, Jeff would go, just raise his eyebrows, like make sure that we both connect with eye contact, but also the non-audible of like, it's okay.
Yeah.
But I see what he just did.
Yeah. 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 It's like he could, yeah. Because I think he lost his ability to feel or know that something was inappropriate. I mean, he would eventually come around to it, but I'm really glad when you came up that we went to lunch because that was a visit I would never have had with Jeff. Did you ever visit him when he lived in Happy Valley?
Oh, Happy Valley, yes. We have
Yeah.
photos. I was like 2 or 3 in
Yeah.
that age range. So there's photos for me to put myself back there, but I can't tell you the conversations we had, no.
Yeah.
But Happy
Remember we,
Valley was just beautiful in itself. Like it was like a little wonderland of in the woods.
yeah.
I'm too young to know how we get there except by car, and it's too long of a drive. And then you're out in the middle of nowhere, and we're at, your brother Jeff's, and then we get to experience that and all the interior of the wood smells and the
Yeah.
dusty blankets. I just
Yeah.
remember all of that.
Yeah. 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 I wish I bought it. Remember when you and I went to visit when you came to, and somebody else owned it by then?
Yeah.
I think you and I probably have the happiest memories of it. Your mom spent a ton of time there. My mom spent a ton of time there.
I can only probably count on my hand the amount of times I went,
Yeah. Yeah.
but still memories are there.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and I envision as we get to know her more, taking her to these places. It would be fun to take her because we could take her to Bethlehem where Jeffrey lived for so long and bring her to Happy Valley and knock on the door and say, hey, her dad lived here for a while and she never met him. And in 24 hours from now, we will be 17 minutes into our meeting. One thing that you and I have talked a lot about as well is the dynamic of family and how we all do and don't fit in. And it's hard to share these things without sounding judgy or sounding like I get super sensitive about my role in the family.
I really like honing in on your children's upbringing experience and like how excited I am to be part of that, given such, not such, but given the years of experience I have on this earth in relation to like being able to help Jack when he becomes I don't I don't know how to
Big boy.
articulate this, when he's more conscious enough to really see where he is in this world and how his family is
Right.
articulated by the outside world of judgment and
Yeah.
curiosity. And I'm really looking forward to be able to help him navigate that. He'll have a village to make sure that happens, but
Yes, he will have a village, but I look sometimes, I look at you and Gracie as being so important for each other because although, because even Gracie's paternal family, she's not close to those people. So she has siblings and cousins and such, but she doesn't have day-to-day closeness with them. They love her, but it's just there's a dynamic there. And so when I look at 20 years down the road, when I'm turning 82, and Jack is turning 24. Ah, and you are 49.
yeah.
Gracie's 44. You were raised sort of as an only child. Ultimately, although Gracie has three siblings, two are not here, and one is 20 years younger than she is. She, for all intents and purposes, is an only child. And then her three half siblings. So I can't wait to have that conversation. To me, your relationship with her is incredibly important. And I feel sometimes like if there's a purpose in how we came to be where we are, you and Gracie, I feel like have a connection, which absolutely involves Jack, because you two will be his sort of maternal, so to speak, figures, big sister, auntie, because, well, I'm going to live to be 100. That's how we Ritzmans do it. It's not like I'm going
Exactly.
anywhere.
Let's not talk about.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. You're part of the
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
too.
Exactly. Oh, funny, funny. Yeah. I wonder sometimes when Jack is old enough to figure it out, he'll be like, wait a minute. But that just lends itself to us. I remember there was a lot of judgment around dad having you in his 80s, but you know,
Well, Jack will have more time to process it. I'm glad that I didn't process what I'm able to after his passing while he was alive, because that would have, I don't want to get all Disney, but like ruin the magic for me. I feel like that would just ruin, I don't know, how I held him to the standard as my father, like without judgment. I just feel like that would get a little toxic if I were to really reflect on that while he was alive. And I'm glad I didn't. And I'm glad I
yeah.
was just in the moment. So,
You know what that did for me too is it allowed me to see the really good parts of dad, because we're all going to see him through the eyes of the people that we're around and through our own experience and that's with our older siblings too. They see what they see and yeah, boy, life is just so not simple.
no.
Yay.
And that's okay.
All right, so another thing I can't wait to hear about is this roller coaster you're going on tomorrow. So tell me about it.
Essentially, I've always been hesitant to ride theme park rides. I like to call myself a little delayed when it comes to trying new things. I don't think I learned how to ride a bicycle until I was about 15. I'm a late bloomer when it comes to opportunities, but recently, within the last few years or so, Barb and Gracie have gifted me opportunities to explore my adventurous side with roller coasters. I've done a loop now, thanks to the Rock and Roller Coaster at Hollywood Studios. However, I still get sick. I have developed some motion sickness, probably thanks to my mother, Hannah. Despite that, we are going to be experiencing a mountain coaster, which is, I want to say, like a metal coaster developed in a mountain-ish range where it kind of just relies on elevation and
Right.
self-track.
Our new niece was telling, we were talking about this on social media or whatever. Our new niece said, had we gone to North Conway? So that whole weekend, I found out who my father well, so my mother told me at night, and then the following weekend, the three of us went up north to Happy Valley and all. And we went to North Conway and went down the mountain coaster. There was a name for it. The Alpine Slide, it was called. And you sat on it and you controlled it. So Mom, Tom, and I all each had our little car.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Eleanor's going to be a regular part of my podcast, though. I've decided. She has a lot to say, and we have tons of things we can talk about. And our family dynamic is so unique that I think we will never run out of perspectives and topics on the mundane things because nothing in our life is mundane, sadly. Is there anything you want to say before we sign off?
Have a good summer, everyone. We're ending June too soon, unfortunately. I love summer. We're gonna hit our solstice soon. Probably by the time this comes out, we'll pass our summer solstice. However, enjoy your solstice, live peacefully, treat others with kindness, and have a great day.
Look at her. She could do a whole podcast ending on her own. Be good to yourselves, everybody. Enjoy the summer. We haven't had hardly any summer weather here, so I can't wait for summer to arrive. But be good to yourselves. After you're good to yourself, be good to someone else. Share the love. Always, always, always. And as always, have a good day, everybody. Hey, thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Feel free to leave a review and share my stories with your friends. Please reach out with your own stories, as I love connecting with my listeners. If you would like to get to know Molly, head over to mollybfoundation.org to see what she is all about. If you want to see what I'm up to next, you can find me on Instagram at barb_444, on Facebook as Barb Higgins, and at my website, 1000tinysteps.com. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter, a weekly way to find out what's up in the life of Barb Higgins.